Hi Mark, great as always to meet up with you and do some further work on your game. I know in the past couple of weeks we've been leaving the video sort of recaps out because we've been working largely on the same sort of moves and just trying to work those same pieces in. However, I felt that the changes you made earlier this week warranted a video for your reference during the winter months on working towards the pieces that we talked about. This session established a lot of benchmarks for you in regards to where we're going with things throughout this winter. In particular, we want to get that P4 position back into the position it was in maybe midway through the season, where it was much better, as you're going to see very shortly on the bottom left hand footage. What we're doing here is we've got this left knee not really moving, we've got the right hip working too deep, we've got this sort of situation where we get this little sort of move off the ball, if you will. It's a little bit of a cheat really. The hips go forward, which prevents it looking like you're drifting off. But if your hip girdle was to stay stable, your upper centre would probably be back here somewhere. And you talked about that being your way of sort of hitting the push, if you will, within the push spectrum. So we talked about, using the extension more, getting the left knee working in more, etc. You demonstrate this really nicely here with this first little rehearsal. Stretching the spine out, extending the hips, the butt of the club travels much further. Then as I come in, I'm going to put the club across your head. You've got to keep the head still, and you can see when you do that, how much more extension we've got at the top, how much more visibility at the back of the at the back of the left shoulder we have. Right shoulder becoming visible at the top of your backswing, butt of the club has travelled much further, which leads us to the next piece that we need to look at in regards to shortening the overall swing. But overall, much tidier at P4. The hip girdle there now has remained stable. The left knee is working inwards and flexing towards the target line. The spine is stretching off in a much more appropriate manner. It's much better P4. I mean, that's as good a P4 as you're going to see from face on. It's absolutely fantastic. When we look at it from down the line, maintaining your inclination to the ground, keeping the head on the wall, learning to extend. What we were then noticing was that the butt of the club now was able to travel much further, so you didn't need quite as much independent use of the arms on the way back. So we talked about shortening P4. Now as you shorten P4, you start to feel that accumulator 2 wants to load a little bit more. So here I've just got the club to the side of your shoulder, limiting the amount of arm swing that you can create. You see accumulator 2 loading a little bit sooner than it normally would. Great position at the top. Now the feeling here was that you were propelling the butt of the club as far as you could without any use of the arms. So you were doing that all with the extension. Great move that. Great position at the top, much tidier. I like the two views there from the bottom left and the bottom centre. Those are the P4s that we want to try and work in during the winter. Get the arms under control. That little overswing move that you make where accumulator 4 travels a little bit too far, loads a little bit too much, is more prevalent with driver than it is with iron, but it is in there with an iron. You can see that position, bottom centre, much tidier. As you change direction, we then talked about why that club gets pulled out onto the left arm and out in front of the hands a little bit too much. And we just did a little bit more work on accumulator 3 and building up your awareness of, or building up your feels. In transition, the left arm is in, could be in a little bit more, but it's in. But accumulator 3 is releasing too soon. So remember the sequence we talked about. Accumulator 3 should basically only start to unload from P6 onwards, and with yourself it's unloading gradually from sort of P5. Stick this back to 5. So we've got no loading of 3, no releasing of 3. Then 3 starts to release from here onwards, which is why the shaft starts to get pulled out onto the left arm. So all we did to remedy this and give you a little bit of a feel of this once we discussed it was get you hitting some shots with just your left arm. And you can see when you do this, from the top, accumulator 3 stays nice and passive as you transition. If anything, it sort of loads a little bit more. The weight of the club keeps that left arm or back of the left hand loaded. Shaft gets a little bit sort of more below the right shoulder, but it's this next bit. Now it doesn't release and it doesn't get pulled out onto the left arm. You see the difference in the condition of the left hand on those two swings. So accumulator 3 has released less, which is keeping the club in, which is allowing you to attack the ball more from the inside. You also notice as you come through, because accumulator 3 has been releasing early, the butt of the club gets higher, and as we come through, the club face has rotated through. We talked about the movement of your left hand through the hip and how we had to control the rate at which that left hand was rotating. Get that one back up. That position there. We need to keep our eye on how much the left hand has rotated under through the hip. I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about with that one. That image sort of demonstrates it. I can't get that image moving, but there is a tendency, and I'll just blow this up actually. There's quite a severe rotation post impact. And that left arm working very much under, but that's set off earlier in the piece. The position that we magnified earlier of the left hand at P5 point, maybe it's P5.7, I think it probably was. That one. That's the most critical piece in regards to you hitting the draw more often. We did talk about the push spectrum. Obviously is when you're hitting the push spectrum, it's controlling the rate at which accumulator 3 releases. So accumulator 3, as well as closing the club face down, if it rolls, will pull the shaft out in front of you too much. That's your key piece. The condition of the left hand, or the back of the left hand at that point in the swing, is what's preventing you from hitting that push draw more often. Accumulator 3 rolls too much, closes the club face and shifts the path to the left. So that's the thing that we've got to get in there. Allied to that much better P4, get more into the extension, propelling the butt of the club with the extension of things rather than sort of cheating with the hips, keeping the forward bend, and then perhaps on occasion lifting the arms off the torso. So we've had you there before on the bottom left, we just need to get back to it. I'm going to hammer you till I'm sick of saying it, till you're sick of hearing me tell you to shorten the length of your arm swing, and accumulator 3 is going to be boxed off once and for all. Added to that, we've upped the bar in regards to what we're going to accept in regards to your wedge play and how good your wedge play is going to be, because that at the end of the day is going to be the defining difference between you and the rest of the field in 2015. Good luck with it, and look forward to the next session in a month or so's time. Well done.